Okay, cool.
Okay. Okay, so I guess we can start us off at 7:05. For those of you who do know me, I'm Nathan. For those of you who don't, I'm also Nathan. So I am taking over as the president. This is our first session where we're kind of having some of the new team pivot over. Thank you, Jack, for selecting us and kind of being the previous president. We appreciate you so much. I think you left everything in pretty good hands and in a pretty good shape. So,
Good hands, I don't know.
well, decent hands at the very least. Hands that can get mad at people and get things done. So, and Jamal as well, vice president. I'll let him introduce himself as well.
I'm Jamal. I'm the vice president. I'm really excited to take over the role of vice president. I know we have some big shoes to fill, and this is also the 10th year anniversary of ISSessions, so super sick. It's crazy that this has been going on for 10 years, and I feel like immensely grateful to be a part of it. So I hope that we can really take it to the next level, really give you a good presentation every single 2 weeks over the summer into the September, and we have a crazy CTF plan for this year, so I hope we can bring it all together for you guys. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do also have a new team. It's not just the presidents that switched over. We do, I think, we'll try to figure out how to get more of the people to introduce themselves, but we do essentially have a new team, like almost completely, and I'm excited to see. Did we replace everybody? I think some people stayed. Yeah, some of the CTF devs did stick around too. They just switched. Some of them went up to like coordinator and stuff like that. So we're excited. I think it's going to be fun going into the summer term, and then once the summer term, we're going once a month, I believe. Last Thursday of every month. So this is going to be the last one where we're doing bi-weekly until September starts up, and then we'll go from there. So let's get started. I think. There we go. It loaded. So as you know, it's a very similar schedule. We're going to try to keep it the same. We'll start with the news roundup. We have some people, not the usual content devs today, but we do have a news roundup. We're going to go over into the XZ vulnerability, and then after a break, we do have a guest speaker, which is great. Thank you for coming over to speak, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, first.
I think you're first.
So.
There we go.
All right, so I'm going to try to walk you guys through this one. So I really like AI and all the stuff that's related to it, and I found this one pretty interesting. So a lot of, I should probably talk into the mic, it's a good idea. So a lot of companies use a service called Ray in order to actually train their AI models on, or just like do stuff with AI. For example, like OpenAI trains their models on Ray's servers essentially. So Ray provides like these massive like supercomputers with like GPUs and all kinds of hardware for these companies to actually train their AI models on. And there was a vulnerability that was found in the system. So it's called Shadow Ray. There's a CVE for it, but for some reason it's debatable whether or not it's actually a vulnerability or not, which I find very interesting. So some things that you can actually do with it, you can basically just run code on their servers. You can use their servers for whatever you want. You can mine Bitcoin on their servers, but for some reason it's not a vulnerability. So I don't really understand why it's up for debate, why it's like a vulnerability or not, but I just find it crazy that it's been like going like this for 7 months and they're not really doing anything about it. There's tons of valuable data on these servers. There's customer information. There's all the data for where the AIs actually get their information from, which could easily be poisoned now. So anywhere that these people are, like any company that's using this to train their AI models is potentially at risk to whatever has been going on these servers for the past 7 months. I find this weird. I don't know why it's not being fixed. I checked like literally today to see if it's still an issue. It's still an issue. So I will follow up on this more, but I thought you guys should know if you want to use Ray, probably don't. Because, or if you do want to, you can mine Bitcoin on it, but I didn't say that, so that's it. Thanks, guys.
Who's up next? John, here to talk about Apple Silicon.
Yes.
So alarming.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys have heard about this bug in the physical chip. I think it came out a couple weeks ago, maybe 1 or 2 weeks, but more information's been coming through, so I'll just run you guys through it a little bit. So researchers have found a bug in all 3 of the silicon Apple chips, M1, M2, M3. You can turn it off in the M3 one, but it's kind of hard to access that setting. So it affects pretty much all of the silicons from them, but it is a local bug, so you don't have to you have to have access to the physical access to the computer. You can't just remote code execute on it. Nothing like that works. So I don't know if you guys have heard of side channel attacks, but this is one of those. A side channel attack is pretty much well, everybody knows like with how cache is. Sorry, I think I clicked the next slide back. So everybody knows that cache, like right next to the computer or in the CPU, it's going back. Oh, it's just yeah. Sorry. There we go. Okay, cool. Sorry. So everybody knows what the cache like on the CPU. This basically has it basically checks if the data is in the cache first, and if it's not, it goes and prefetches the data and pulls it into the cache to be used for later. So you can use kind of side channels to if you think the program is going to use that memory address before, it pulls it in there so then you can use it for later. It's faster execution time. But they didn't realize when they were prioritizing for faster execution that they messed up with the security part of it. So basically you can steal like cryptographic keys through the exploit. Sorry, let me just go through it again a little bit more easier for you guys to explain. Sorry. Right, so the Apple engineers, when they were engineering the silicon, they actually did not check if the pointer was a pointer or not. They just checked if it looked like a pointer. So as soon as you hear that, you're just like, oh, damn. So basically you can inject like any like arbitrary memory address and prefetch that memory address, whatever memory address you want, and load it into the cache, and then you can do whatever you want on the computer at the time. So yeah, they basically use this with it's called the data memory dependent. Oops, sorry, hit the button again. Data memory dependent prefetcher (DMPs), and yeah, you can, like I said in the beginning, you can disable it with an M3. You can go in and enable something called DIT, which disables the prefetcher but enables some other type of prefetching. I don't know why it's still lagging. But okay, there we go. Yeah, so you can just find out the cryptographic keys from the computer, but you have to have physical access to the computer, so it's not a remote code execution. I think that's all I want to talk about. Yeah. Okay, let's see if that works. Yeah, so another explanation that I just remembered that I had written earlier. Most processes, when you're checking for like a password and stuff, like with an Apple, they check if you enter in like C, for example, for the character, it would check at the same time for the next character. This would wait for a couple seconds so you can actually try and guess what the next character is, which is what the prefetching is. So that's like part of the bug of the issue. I'm pretty sure I covered everything there, so yeah. Cool. I don't know who's next.
Alright, good evening hackers. So the story that I chose was about a data breach. So the breach was from a firm called Equity Incorporations. Now what's interesting about Equity is they're a consulting firm for 400 employees with 100 million plus annual revenue, and mostly it comes from the government contracts. The story caught my eye because it provides DevSecOps, IT operations, modernization, cybersecurity, data analytics, and operation support to federal, civilian, national security customers. The data that was breached was it was leaked on many dark web forums. The personal information related to Five Eyes, 14 Eyes. These are the intelligence groups, which are like English-speaking nations, and also the U.S. allies. The full data, the data included full names, email addresses, office numbers, and cell phone numbers, personal cell phone numbers of U.S. officials. These were not related. These were not limited to government, military, and Pentagon officials. So this caught eye because the group or individual, which is Intel Broker, also known as the Kill Bob. Initially, they started with the name Kill Bob. Now they switched it to Intel Broker. They are very notorious since 2022. My bad. And their infamous records also hold. They targeted Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which is ICE, and also U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. That was their previous attack. After that, they, for some money or I don't know, for the sake of fun, they went after DC Health Link, which included all the personal information, all the hospital records and everything linked to DC Health service provider. That was the insurance provider for US. They also accessed data for DARPA-related military information, which are the avionics. So any new aircraft models or any new technology that they are working on, they had allegedly they had the access on for that. Other data breaches like Los Angeles International Airport, DoD documents, staffing giant Robert Half. I'm pretty sure some of you might be applying for jobs, and Robert Half would be the company that you will be. It's like an agency where they technically recruit people, and they also had an attack with them. Other words were We Groceries, which they stole 1.1 million records from the We Grocery store. That's a Mexican company, but it's giant in US. Yeah, they have been very notorious, and now they're attacking government agencies and not just like small agencies. So this could be a development where, yeah, it could have a huge impact. I'm not sure. The investigation is still going, and U.S. Department, they acknowledged the investigation, they confirmed it, but the nature and the scope of the claim has not been disclosed, obviously because of the security reasons. And yeah, the investigation is still going on. The key part that I found on this one was the data that was sold was only for $3,000 Monero, and yeah, it's what that they are asking for $3,000. Now, one might think for that amount of money, I'm not sure what they are trying to achieve. It's not gonna make them millionaires, of course, but yeah. Yeah, the investigation is going on. We'll see how the updates turn up.
Cool.
All right. Thank you.
All right, so this one is just a day or two old. So a security researcher from Amazon named Paulos Yabello, he published a write-up on a new attack technique, which the Register dubbed as Clickjacking's slicker cousin. So if you're not familiar with Clickjacking, you know, you're playing like some mobile game, you get your ad, and it's like, you know, like matching shapes or something. But hey, you see an X, so hey, you can get rid of this. You click on it, boom, you're in the App Store. They tricked you because the X was a fake X. You clicked on the X and it actually sent you to the App Store. In essence, that's what clickjacking is. This is a bit similar, where it's tricking the user into performing some sort of action. In this case, either holding down a key or performing a double click on a button in order to have them perform some action which they don't actually want to do. So the methodology, like I said, it involves tricking their behavior, and it's required to be on an attacker's website. So this whole attack, it hinges on the ID attribute in HTML. In the example, you can see the ID attribute there, important button in that HTML tag. This can actually be referenced in the URL in the fragment part after the hashtag there, important button. This will select the button, and with that, by clicking the button, you can actually just click the button. So the first attack vector, the attacker's site, it convinces the user to press and hold down the space or enter key. While this is happening, the attacker's site is going to open an authentication window for the target site with that element selected, like that hashtag allow. And since it's selected, and since you're holding down that button, it's actually going to click the allow button and gain access. So they put in a demo. I got the video pulled up. Let me see if I can escape.
It should work. Then press F11 again.
Press. Yeah. So this is our first attack vector. So you'll see this is where it'll be important to look. But so first, we go to the attacker's website. It prompts you to hold down the button. Some like window voodoo happens. Cookies are enabled. You go back, and now they got access to the Yahoo account. The other attack vector is the double click. So the way this is going to work, so the attacker is going to open two more windows actually, and it's going to create a bit of a sandwich. So on the bottom, you have the attacker's website. In the middle, you have the target website. And then on top of the target website, the attacker has another window, which is going to prompt the user to click some sort of button, or specifically double click the button. After the first click, it's going to close that window. So you click on the target website. If that isn't too clear, I got another video for that, courtesy of our security researcher. Restart. So prompts you to double click there. He's going to actually double click here. It's not super obvious. And then we get our little alert indicating we performed the double click. And there you go. You see that target window was in between the two attacker windows. So in terms of known mitigations, so the first attack, and I believe the second one as well, it hinges on the element being easy to predict and being static. I think in the first one, the Yahoo one, it was like OAuth 2-allow or something like that, and it's always going to be that. So the researcher recommends either making it hard to guess, or even better, having it dynamically generated. Instead of just having it be allow, it's allow and then random string of characters afterwards. Or for important buttons, just don't give it the ID parameter at all. Specifically with double click, the researcher mentioned you could have it so in order for the button to be enabled, there has to be some sort of mouse movement beforehand, or you have to wait a few milliseconds before you can click that button. I should also mention, with the first one, it does hinge on the user being logged into Yahoo already in order for this to work. But yeah, so I don't know how widespread this will be, but I just found it interesting. You know, we learn a lot about vulnerabilities, but this is sort of just tricking the user. It's pretty funny.
So if most of you, if not all of you, by now have heard about the XZ Utility Backdoor, it's been a pretty big vulnerability that's been discovered. Could have been one of the biggest supply chain attacks we've ever seen. A lot of people have been talking about it, so I kind of wanted to just summarize what happened, why it happened, and what's going to happen.
Just click or next, or use like arrow key or space.
So a little bit of background and discovery into how it happened. So XZ is just the utility on Linux that provides lossless data compression. And because its data compression is really good, it's involved in pretty much every single Unix OS and its distributions. So we're talking about Ubuntu, Kali, Red Hat, Debian, pretty much every single one except Temple OS. So that keeps it safe. But essentially, those are, you can see how catastrophic it could have been just because every single OS is vulnerable. Anyways, so how was it discovered? So Andres Freund, which is the GOAT right there, I put a little emoji there. He's the Microsoft software engineer, and he accidentally found it. So pretty much what happened was one night he was testing benchmarks and issues on Debian SID, which is just the development distribution of Debian Linux. He was looking into why SSH logins were taking so much CPU power and were taking a little bit longer than usual, so about 500 milliseconds longer than usual. And the reason actually why it was accidentally discovered was also because of that second part, producing errors in Valgrind. So Valgrind is essentially just another tool where it detects if there's any memory leaks in your software. He even said himself that, you know, when he was testing everything out and he was looking at the SSH logins taking a lot of CPU power, he's like, okay, that's a little bit weird, but I'll let it slide. Then he saw that it was taking a little bit longer than usual. He's like, okay, that's also suspicious, but I won't really check into it. But then every single time he tried logging in, Valgrind always popped up an error. So that set off an alert in his head, and he's like, okay, this is weird. And as a result, he investigated into it and found that there were problems coming from XZ, specifically the libelzma package, which is just the package that compresses and decompresses data. So what does it actually do? So added in XZ 5.6.0 and 5.6.1, it essentially injects a payload, which is just the malicious code, and interferes with the SSH process. And since the SSH process specifically deals with the root user, it can break authentication and give unauthorized access to the system remotely to the attacker. It's a very complex code that I had trouble kind of putting it into simple terms, but I found a really good comment that kind of outlined the technicalities of it without it being too overbearing. So it said, if you use this payload with OpenSSH SSHD, which is just the executable that makes SSH connections in Linux, it makes the RSA public decrypt function act maliciously. Once the attacker provides a specific key into the function, it allows the payload to work. Once verified, attacker can run code remotely through RCE or remote code execution. When I read that comment, I instantly had a question. How does RSA public decrypt function act maliciously? And looking into it, it was honestly super genius on the attacker's side. So whenever a normal SSH connection actually happens, it's encrypted and decrypted through RSA, which we all know. So a normal connection, a normal process would call the functions, and the RSA public decrypt function specifically has a key already assigned to it. So it uses that key and then it decrypts the data. In the payload, if it's run with OpenSSHD or OpenSSH SSHD, pretty much what the attacker does is it calls the RSA public decrypt function and says, look, this is not your key anymore. My key is your key now. And that key is the payload. So it hides the payload under the key as the RSA, under the RSA public decrypt function, which again, it's genius because no one would have guessed to check under the RSA algorithm. So I just thought that was pretty cool. Obviously, because RCE is allowed, unauthorized access essentially just allows more payloads to be delivered without major changes needed, no merges, nothing. The attacker completely has full access to your system. But one thing that I also found super interesting was, and no one knows why as of now, because this was just recently discovered, it specifically targeted AMD 64 systems that have the standard C library and specifically only on Debian and Red Hat distributions. So you can see the code there. Those two snippets were taken directly from the payload itself. You can see in the first line, it looks for or it doesn't look for it, but it negates it. Anyways, it looks for x86_64, which is just AMD 64, and then it looks for Linux GNU, which is just checking if the name, if they're using the standard C library. And then the second snippet, it looks for Debian or RPM_Arch, which is just another way of saying Red Hat. So again, no one knows why, but I just thought that was pretty interesting. Now, the code is complex, and again, I wanted to provide a non-technical analysis into it. And if you don't know by now, there's a YouTuber called Fireship who does these non-technical analysis and talks about informational news or technological news. And I thought that he summarized it pretty well. So quickly before I play the video, because it's only 30 seconds, two things I wanted to quickly point out. Lassie Collins, or Lass, however you want to pronounce it, is the solo or the original creator of the XZ package. So he was the one that's been solo maintaining for 12 years, but we're going to talk about that after. And then Gia is the attacker that infiltrated and got into XZ.
A non-technical analogy. Imagine.
Is there any way we could?
Yes.
The laptop is a little knob.
Oh yeah, perfect. Yeah.
There's a landlord, we'll call him Lassie Cullen, who manages a popular apartment building. It's a lot of work, but this young, enthusiastic guy has been super helpful over the last couple of years, adding all sorts of upgrades and renovations. Let's call him Giang. He does great work, but he's also been secretly installing cameras in the bathrooms, which only he can access from the internet with his password. Now, he would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for a pesky tenant named Andres, who happened to notice that his electricity bill was just a little bit higher than usual. He started looking behind the walls and found some unexpected wires that led right to the unauthorized camera.
Yeah, so that's pretty much it. Hopefully that helped, because again, it's pretty complex.
A non-technical analogy.
Hold up.
A non-technical analogy. Imagine there's a landlord, we'll call him Lassie Cullen.
There we go. Okay. Although the code itself is cool and how it was discovered was cool, I think the coolest part was how it actually came into fruition. So all of that can be attributed solely to social engineering. So in 2009, XZ was made and maintained by Lassie Collins, as Fireship said. He was the solo maintainer. He fixed everything, updated everything, patched everything, the whole nine. 12 years later, well, I guess 13, but 12 years later, Gia Tan, under the alias of Gia T75, made a GitHub account. One cool thing, though, as well, is because Gia was lesser known at the time, there were no really red flags going off in everybody because, again, who the hell was Gia at this time? They made a couple posts and codes that they posted on their GitHub account that were super suspicious. I didn't really look into them, but I know that a lot of people looked into the account of Gia and they were like, why the hell? Why did GitHub not ban this guy? So that's one thing. But again, 1 year later, Tan submitted the patch to the XZ mailing list. He was simply just asking Lass to, fix this patch. I know you're not on often, just do it whenever you can. Throughout that year, however, and this is where the crazy part begins. Throughout that year, Tan pressured Lass to commit the patch or to fix the patch, but then out of nowhere, about 4 other different accounts started emailing Lass and saying, look, you don't do anything. You don't fix anything. You don't update anything. What's the point of you even being the solo maintainer at this point? You need someone else that helps you, right? These guys came out of nowhere, and they defended Tan, and essentially bullied Lass into having another developer on the team. Eventually, Lass caved in, and because Tan was actually helping him throughout the entire process, Lass made him the solo developer. And another cool fact as well is once Tan was officially the developer, all of those guys that were emailing Lass left. They were gone. Like, there was no trace of them, which is Kind of weird, but January 2023, Tan submitted the first commit to XZ, and this is where people started believing that Laz and Tan had a good relationship. Laz started trusting Tan a little bit more, so he allowed him to do a couple more things. And that's where in 2023 he became more involved. So one of the cool things that, or not cool things, but one of the things that he did was he changed the contact information on a couple websites. So instead of Laz's contact information, it was Tan's. So he kind of took over the project a little bit. And the other, I mentioned this a little bit previously, but Tan was actually helping Laz throughout the entire process. Yeah, he was building a backdoor that could have been really bad, but he was also actually fixing the patches, and he was on top of the game when it came to pull requests and everything. He was actually helping Laz throughout this bad period when Laz was having mental health issues. Later on in 2023, Tan requested OSS Fuzz to have iFunk disabled. And pretty much what that means as a brief summary is it allows people to, or it's a program that essentially detects malicious code. So disabling that prevents detecting malicious code in the code itself. And the way that this happened also was because some random guy on GitHub recently just made an account, made a pull request to Tan. Tan immediately fixed the patch, and the GitHub left. The GitHub is gone. So that's also another thing. And then now back into where we are now. In February 2024, XZ 5.6.0 was released. March 2024, XZ 5.6.1 is released. In March 2024, Tan appeals to Ubuntu Red Hat Debian to merge the changes, and he was actively pushing for them. So he wasn't just saying, hey, this is the push, just do whatever you can. He said, yo, do this as fast as possible, right? March 2024, Andre comes out of nowhere, is superhero of the day. He emails the OSS security and the Linux distributions, and then the warnings released to downgrade the XZ package because, again, it could have been catastrophic. So what's next? The code is still being reverse engineered, and updates are being released daily. Obviously, this code came out about a week to 2 weeks ago, so people, because it's so complex and there's so many facets and we have no idea what the capacities of the code are, there's still things to find out about the code. So we don't know what's next. But with that comes the speculations of who did it. Who was the identity behind Giang? And you heard me referencing before about, random GitHub accounts started popping out of nowhere and pressuring Laz and making pull requests, and then after that they disappeared. If you ever look into this, one of the main conspiracies that are out right now is that Giang was not solo. It was a person or a group that was very well educated and very well funded, meaning that they were state funded. So whenever you read the comments, you'll see that people have the idea that, look, this was a country that was behind this. There's no way it took 2 years and the solo guy just did this by himself, right? So take that with a grain of salt, but that's just a theory out there. But what could have happened if the backdoor actually was not discovered? And again, we don't know. So the code, again, is still being reverse engineered, and we still don't know the capacities of what's happening. However, one thing we do know is, as I mentioned earlier, the SSH processes involve the root user. That means if the backdoor actually happened and it wasn't caught, the attacker would have full root permissions of the system and have the ability to run code remotely. So that's not good. So anyways, I included 2 links in the bottom if anyone is interested. The first one is just a little bit more of a technical analysis into the code itself, and then just basic updates of day-to-day updates. And then the second code is actually just the email that Andre actually sent to the distributions and into the OSS security. So if anyone is interested, then they're right there. But that is all.
Guys, we're gonna have a little break. I'm gonna put the CCR code up on the screen. If you're afraid of tunnels, don't look at the screen. I'm gonna post the CCR in Discord and screen questions.
Hope everyone had a great break. But we're going into our talk now. Thank you very much for coming. And I'll let you take over. It's appreciated for you to take time out of your day, and yeah, take it away.
Anyone hear me okay? Okay. Yeah, so there will be no slides, unfortunately. And this talk is a bit different than others because I want to like speak with you guys more than like give a talk. Because like breaking into the industry, different people will have different experience and different paths. So I don't want to tell my stories and just like give you guys advice because it might be different for everyone. How many people in this room haven't had CoOp?
Haven't had?
Yeah, haven't had.
I know some on the Discord.
11. That's a lot. More than a half? Yeah, like 3. Yeah. How many people have had CoOp? 1, 2, 3. So 4, yeah. So is it like are you guys doing CoOp or already having full-time job?
It's like a full-time job,
Mm-hmm.
basically. Yeah.
Okay, so most people having CoOp are like having full-time job at the moment. Yeah, so my experience will be different from everyone, and I want to like asking people with CoOp and then having full-time right now to help me a little bit to share their experience as well. Because right now we want to like help students that haven't had CoOp to know how to start their path to prepare for CoOp, and then also after CoOp we'll be breaking into the full-time job situation, right? So I will start with my story. So I haven't had after my 4th semester. So that was when you guys also start to looking for CoOp, right? After
semester? Semester
Fourth.
6. Well, now we look at semester 6. I don't know if,
Okay.
if it's different from.
So for Seneca, it's like after the 4th semester, you will start looking for CoOp, and then after the 5th one, you will start CoOp, and then after you will go back to school for like the 6th semester, and then you go back for the CoOp, and you graduated after like the 8th semester. Yeah. During after my 4th semester, it was like during COVID, so it was really hard to get CoOp. I couldn't get CoOp for 3 terms, and there was because I used up all my other semesters, I have to take a break and went to like work for full time for Amazon, a labor job, and then after that I got like a CoOp job from BMO. So there was like some skill sets that I feel like if right now I look back, I feel like I lack a lot of it. Like for example, English. I didn't have English at that time. My English sucks. And I didn't have communication skills. And I didn't have people skills. Like I went to events, like literally every single event that I know of, like in Toronto. So people, like if people went to event, they will know my face. And I couldn't talk to people. I just stand in the corner. I was the corner guy standing there and then like looking at people talking, having fun, and then like, okay, that's good. And yeah, so I was that guy, and I didn't have the skill set. I went to multiple interviews for like the CoOp, but couldn't get any of it. And after that, I got CoOp for BMO in a really interesting way. It was not because my English or communication skills were better at the time. It was because the manager at the time just came into the interview, asking one question like, what is CTF to you? So, and it was like a company that value CTF, because at the time I had nothing but CTF achievement. How many people in here knows about cyber-sci competitions? Well, I guess like most of you. So for anyone who doesn't know it, cyber-sci is basically a competition between universities and colleges in Canada. And after you like pass the region round, you will go to the national round, and then from there you will represent Canada to compete with other countries. So that's a pretty big event. So we went to my team and I went to the CyberSci 2021. In the region round, you can have international students in your team, but at the time it wasn't like there was no Waterloo team that year. So we are kind of like, okay, that's good, that's a good sign. They didn't annihilate us. But yeah, that year my team and I got like first place for the region region round, and double the point of the second team across all regions. So it was a really big achievement at the time, and we got into the interviews with like Bell and other companies. But I couldn't get the CoOp. I didn't have the offer from the interviewers, and the only members that have had offers were Canadian. The other two were Vietnamese, like international, and we didn't have any communication skill, no English skill. Even though the other Vietnamese guy was the best person, like he has the most technical knowledge across the team, but he couldn't get the offer. So yeah, my first advice for myself is like improve English, improve communication, because when you go to CoOp, they don't care much about your technical skills. You should know basics, but know how to communicate, how to use English well, and then you can get a job right away for the CoOp. That's for my first advice and my story. Anyone want to share the story for the CoOp?
There's only about 3 people that can. So I'll just single you out here.
I can. Come up with it.
Yeah, this is not a wireless.
If you want, you can use that shirt.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I was gonna ask Todd to do an interview, but he was not here.
Okay.
Sorry for bringing you.
No. I'm always happy to speak. Hello. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Connor. I was I guess my like origin story sort of. I was actually at the University of Guelph in software engineering after high school, and I spent and I was like the typical kid who was like really like full of themselves coming out of high school. I went into uni, I'm like, oh my God, uni's gonna be so easy. I don't need to go to class. Oh, big surprise, I start failing all my classes because I'm not going to school, I'm not studying. Not an uncommon story, of course, right? So after 2 years of that, I felt like I needed to do like a fresh start kind of, and I was always really interested in security. So I came to Sheridan because honestly, coincidentally, I live 10 minutes from here where my parents are. That was really the main reason I came, to be completely honest. But without question, the best decision I've ever made in my life. I'm very, very, very happy with how everything's turned out. I got probably the biggest thing that happened was in second year, this club was running the annual CTF. That was the year, if any of you remember Luai or Jem and Nash, when they were running the CTF, it was the first year that the CTF at the school was really, really, really big. They put an unbelievable amount of time into it, hundreds of hours. They got a ton of sponsors. They got a lot of challenges made. It was a phenomenal event. It was very, very cool. Incredible the work that they did. So me and a couple of my friends, we participated in that, and very similar story actually to as he just shared. We got second place. We did really well, and just as he said, it looks really good on a resume. Of course, placing in a CTF is going to look really good. But even if you don't place, that's not a big deal. It's still really good just to show participation, regardless of how well you actually do. That's still very, very, very important. Yeah, so that kind of like really got me a lot more interested in actually trying to do like extracurricular stuff. I'm good, okay. Do extracurricular stuff, and then coincidentally, a few weeks after the CTF was over, they were looking for new execs for the exec team. I applied and I said, you know, I've been doing like extracurricular stuff with the esports club for a couple of years, and it was kind of fun, but like it's not really helping my career in any capacity. But I had a little bit of like experience helping with school clubs and stuff. So I was actually the next year after that, I was the lead developer and like organizer for the CTF, which was 2022, I think. It was 3 CTFs ago, I want to say, something like that. And that was an amazing experience for me as well. And I think some people here are on the CTF dev team. If you're not, that's not a big deal. But if you ever have a chance to like work with a club in any capacity, or particularly work on a CTF, I would really recommend it. It helped me a lot with my technical skills, and it's a really good thing to put on a resume. And I mean, that's also something where it's not like you really need to like worry about like competing with somebody, because you don't have to worry about like doing well in the CTF. You can say, I worked on the CTF, so who cares about like placing highly or not, right? It's a little bit less stress. So that was a lot of stuff, a lot of work that we put in, and I coincidentally, like, I got very it was a little bit of luck and a little bit of just like putting myself in the right position. But my job as part of one of the things with leading the CTF was I was also in charge of coordinating sponsorships with companies. And one of the companies that I was coordinating sponsorship with was Trend Micro. And the guy specifically that I was coordinating sponsorship with was named Vincent. Didn't know anything about him. I would email him sometimes. And then, big surprise, December comes of the year I'm supposed to apply for CoOp. I see Trend Micro, vulnerability research intern for the summer. Oh, that looks really cool. I apply. I go to the interview. Who's my interviewer? Vincent. Excellent. It was absolutely perfect for me. I was very, very happy. And just completely coincidentally as well, it was exactly the kind of work I was really interested in. Vulnerability research, it's a long explanation, but it's like low-level security stuff, reverse engineering, looking at like assembly. And I was really, really interested in like buffer overflows, that kind of stuff. I thought that was really cool. So that was my first like CoOp. But exactly what he said, like communication skills are absolutely huge. And I know, and he did a really good job with, specifically your example was fantastic about how sometimes the more technical people don't get the job. And that is something really important to keep in mind. And particularly, I think when people are looking for co-ops, they feel like you need to be the most technical person and you need to know more than the other students. And of course, like you should try to learn as much technical stuff as you can. I'm not saying don't do that, but your communication skills and just the way that people view you when you talk to them, without question, is significantly more important. Yep. And it always will be for your entire career. It was a big reason why I got my job with Vincent. The interview was really not that long. He barely even asked me questions because he already knew that he liked me and he knew that I had put in a lot of work. So he didn't really care like how much technical stuff I knew. And this kind of stuff, it does happen. You know, building connections, the way you talk to people, the way that you present yourself in an interview, it's really, really, really important. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of like my origin stuff. I did another, I did a little bit of like a customization, I guess, to like our degree. So I did 8 months at Trend Micro, and then the way like with our after third year, and then I did my semester 7 of school, and then I really wanted to try to work in application security engineering, which for those of you, if you're not familiar with it, it's more or less it's a lot closer to like a software engineering job. Mostly it involves like doing like code review for like an actual company, like you're working for a company. So I ended up doing another internship with a company called SeatGeek. Kind of like Ticketmaster, but they're not as bad as Ticketmaster is the way that I usually explain it to people. They're a lot nicer. then Ticketmaster. Not that that's hard. So I was really interested in application security. So I actually did another internship last summer. So I actually delayed my degree a little bit because I really wanted to do this job. And I got my full-time job offer for when I finally graduate, which will be in August. I've taken, going back to New York when I finish. I've just taken the last few months off because I don't have school, because I cannot start my last term until the summer, because our courses are only offered one semester a year, unfortunately, in semester 8. So I've just had like a lot of downtime. A lot of time just playing World of Warcraft. But that's my, sorry if that was like a long-winded explanation, but that's my story, I guess.
It's perfect.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, so
Yeah, please.
Retail or classic for a while?
Retail. Unfortunately,
Everyone makes a choice.
I didn't play classic as a kid. Unfortunately, my parents wouldn't pay for a sub, so I don't have the same nostalgia.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Okay, just curious. All right, sorry. Go ahead.
oh yeah, no worries. Just want to say, like, during the interview, my manager also didn't ask much. We literally just like asking questions around and then talking about ourselves. And we didn't even turn on the camera, by the way. And it was really rare for a CoOp interview, because like usually ask you to turn on the camera. And for the last question, he only asked me one really simple question, like explain reflected cross-site scripting and stored cross-site scripting. And yeah, you don't really need like super technical knowledge to go into an interview. But it doesn't mean that you shouldn't go to like participate in CTFs. Those CTFs will also give you like valuable knowledge and gives you like expose you to the public. There was one time I went to Hackfest. Anyone knows about Hackfest? No.
Really? No.
Really? Hackfest is so in Canada there are like four biggest conferences across the Canada. CanSec West in Vancouver, Montreal NorthSec for Montreal, Sector for Toronto, and Hackfest for Quebec City. So Hackfest is the most technical one out of 4. And they each year they will have around, last year they had 7 different CTFs going around at the same time, like IoT CTF, beginner CTF from Desjardins, and 3 different CTFs competition from Hackfest. And they have like a bunch of different CTFs every single year. So I went to Hackfest and did a CTF for like the beginner CTF for Desjardins, got the third place, and got a job offer, but I didn't have French, so they didn't give me that. So it was like a nice thing. Like I told you the story mostly because like if you go to the CTF and you did well, you may get the job offer right after batch. Like he gave me the job offer right there after the competition. Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, that's a bonus point for anyone who loves CTF.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Mm-hmm.
Anyone wants to share this CoOp?
I'm a sucker for peer pressure. This guy's a pen tester, by the way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like we haven't really acknowledged
Yeah, I'm gonna go to like the full-time job.
We haven't had like any offensive security talks this week, so just thinking.
I'm thinking about like getting the course from NorthSec about Burp Suite and gonna give a talk about that.
Yeah. Hit him up.
Please sign up. We'd love to have you back.
We need to set up like 13 guest speakers. Please.
Yeah. You can do 3 of them, and I can do the other 10. But yeah, so I got my CoOp at Arctic Wolf doing threat intel. I got a bit of luck. One of my friends, he broke his leg and missed the interview. One of my other friends did the interview, like last question, like, where do you want to visit? He said like Romania because they got weaker drug trafficking laws. I just said Iceland because like I thought it looked like a cool place. So
Yeah.
At least he was being honest.
yeah. So my word of advice: don't like incriminate yourself there. But also like being a part of ISSessions obviously clearly helped. I kind of learned that after the fact because like my managers, they run DEF CON 416, and basically like while I was working there, like he gave me the hard sell to join that team. So I'll be getting some speakers for you from there hopefully. But yeah. So pen testing, how'd you get into that?
For CoOp, it was actually about pen testing. Like, it's a bit different because I couldn't get like CoOp for 3 terms because I lack like soft skills, right? And when I got into BMO, I still lack soft skill. But my technical skills are pretty good at the time. So they gave me 1 engagement to shadow one senior. I did pretty well on that engagement. And after that, they said like, okay, you don't need to shadow anymore, just do. They just give me engagement, not like solo, but like I can do whatever I want on my own. And it was about, so the job was a security testing analyst for BMO, and it was a web application penetration testing, like just web application. BMO, yeah, my team only specialize on web and mobile. The other team will be cloud, network, and a bunch of cool stuff like phishing and stuff. But my team is like web and mobile. That's it. So during that time, during 8 months of CoOp, like I have back-to-back for 8 months continuously for the CoOp. And after that, I was pretty good at web application testing. And during the time at BMO, I had to write a lot of report and then present it to the FC meeting. Basically, a bunch of directors and managers sit down and hear about your report. So it was like really, like I was panicked at the time and couldn't even speak properly on my first one. But after that, I just get more confident over time and improve my English around that time, and got to the point that I after the CoOp, I could get into the interview without preparing anything and still kill the interview. That's what, like after CoOp, BMO couldn't secure the budget for my position, so I had to do an interview for Bell Canada for a really sketchy position kind of thing. I couldn't find any information online, by the way, about that role. And even the team was like nowhere to be found in the internet. And I went, and when I got the email from Bell, like, oh yeah, we want to interview you. I'm like, did I submit my resume to Bell at some point? Because I didn't remember doing that. And so yeah, I went to the interview. It was a pretty normal interview, like asking about what I'm doing and my projects and the time I was at BMO. Then they brought me back for the technical interview. It was a CTF, like literally a CTF web, like usually the website that usually hosted CTF. I forgot the name of it. Yeah, yeah, I did it pretty well. So they brought me back for the 3rd round, talk to the manager, and just pretty much asked me about how I did with the teamwork and stuff. After that, she just gave me the job offer, like right after batch. So yeah, like the time at BMO it was really valuable because like I was exposed to FC meetings, like presenting reports to a bunch of big faces at BMO. So it gives me like a lot more confidence, like literally saying, what can go wrong right now? No one is more important than these people. So if I can get these people understand me, then anyone can understand me kind of thing. So yeah. And after like doing the work with Bell for 6 months, BMO got the budget and asked me like, oh yeah, do you want to come back? I'm like, okay. And then I got the job offer from BMO and still working for them until now. Yeah.
So do you write a lot of reports? Because like that's the thing I hear about red
Yeah,
team.
write a lot of report. So yeah, for people that haven't had CoOp, when you like do a lot of classwork, when you write a lot of reports, don't complain about it, because you still have like a bunch of them ahead of you, and you should you can use ChatGPT to help you. So try your best to write report in a way that you can deliver your message to non-technical people, because people that you communicate the most in the job is like non-technical people.
C-suite people that like numbers and figures, they don't like technical details.
Yeah, the thing is like not many C-suite will
No,
read
just
reports,
saying,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. But so yeah, that's what, like one of the advice for like haven't had CoOp previous students. Write report. Don't complain about it because you still have a lot of it. And when you got a job, there will be more to it. As my job is pretty relaxing, I didn't do a lot of report right now. Like I had one engagement every 2-3 weeks, and I will have a break in between each engagement. So yeah, I will write only one report a month right now. But for other jobs, from what I heard, people write 2-3 reports a week.
Whoa.
So, and a lot of people like burn out in the industry.
I don't mind reports as long as I know what I need to write about. It's the ones where here's a broad topic, give me a report on it. That's my problem with them. It's like give me exactly what you want me to give you, and I'll give it to you.
It doesn't usually happen like that, because if you do like penetration
Talking
testing,
school side, but
yeah, for school side, yes. For the work, when usually if you do like penetration testing, they give. If you have a finding, you will write a report on that, so you pretty much know what you need to write about. Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, how long do the reports take? Yeah.
Oof, it depends. So
In case
if
the mic didn't pick that up, how long do the reports take to write?
It's hard to say. There was one time when my report was around 130 pages. Explaining about SQL injection.
130 pages, like size like 40 font, right? Like.
No.
Size 4.
that was charts and figures though, and screenshots or diagrams.
Not many.
No? Okay.
Not many, because we put a lot of payloads onto it.
Okay.
Font like 14? 14?
14, okay. That's still better than
It was not small, but yeah.
That's reasonable.
Yeah, so yeah, for people like I just have something on in mind. So if you think that a lot of basic attack surface won't be found when you work, it's wrong. Because like if you know like SQL injection was like 20 years old or something, cross-site scripting is also like the same age, and if when you go to work, you may find them quite regularly. Like since I started working, it was like if I include CoOp, it's like 2 years. I found like 4 or 5 SQL injection and a bunch of cross-site scripting. Yeah, so it's still there. Just need to look a little bit closer.
Do you got a favorite vulnerability?
Oof. I found one for a client. I couldn't. And it was like, you know, like how what is it? Affirm. Do you guys know Affirm? Yeah, the payment one. And it was like something they call something else before that. And when we tested the client, we found an API key that was supposed to be private. So if you get that API key, extract it to the request, do a bunch of algorithm, calculate the hash, you can basically send that request with the hash to Affirm, asking for a refund, a full refund by yourself, and you still keep the product. And that client usually sells products have value around like 2K, 3K more. So it was like a pretty interesting vulnerability. Yeah.
What was like the worst vulnerability you've ever found?
SQL injection. Literally exposed database of thousands. Oh, sorry, not thousands, millions of people. It was like a non-authentication SQL injection as well. It was bad. It was really, really bad. And the other day when we tested a different app, I found like 4 or 5 high findings, 1 critical. Basically doing account takeover, and it was an application to monitor finance of people. So it was interesting for web. You won't have a lot of vulnerabilities that give you RCE or remote or web shell, but yeah, it's still interesting in the way that you can find a lot of more valuable information than getting into the system. How about your experience to like full time, man?
Me?
So we do have a question from the chat. Michael is asking, would you recommend writing reports for Hack the Box to practice and use on a resume?
Yeah, definitely. Hack the Box usually has like standalone machine. If you can do, instead of like, so right now you can practice doing reports for standalone machines. Later on, you should start to do prolapse, because there are clusters of machines, right? And they connected to each other. Usually it will be like that in the working environment, a bunch of machines connected to each other. And when you do the prolapse, did the full report on every single one of them and how they connect to each other, and see if you can chain any vulnerabilities together to create like a big vulnerability. Yeah, that's my recommendations.
And then a follow-up, the question is how or what tips would you give about learning how to write reports in a professional setting? Like, did you kind of learn it yourself? Did it come through, your school? Like, how did you get to a point where you were comfortable and were able to write like 130-page reports, for example?
I will answer first, and if you guys want to. Yeah, so I didn't know how to write report at all when I got my CoOp. Literally had to learn it as it went with my mentor at the time. He had to fix every single grammar error on the report and had to show me how to write a proper report. So like right now I'm still learning how to write a report, and people keep saying like the more you do it, the perfect you are when it comes to like report writing. So write a lot of report and go to LinkedIn or some websites that share professional report. Some security companies share their report after doing like auditing. You can start reading those and see how you can improve your skills by the time. Like for example, 7A security, they usually publish a bunch of audit reports, and you can just come there and read about it. Yeah.
We got like room for like 2 more questions.
That's all it for the Discord.
when you woke up today, did you think you were going to come to Sheridan and answer questions about how to write a report? No.
All right, so you got room for one more question.
What were you thinking about this morning?
There's two.
What were you thinking about this morning?
The what?
It's a joke. No.
You don't have, ignore him.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm really interested in pen testing and red teaming. I'm really interested in pen testing and red teaming, and I'm trying to learn a lot about like the basics right now. But I was wondering if you could recommend any resources that could help like novice students, for example. Like I'm only in second year, getting like a head start on pen testing.
What area are you interested in right now?
Like in terms of pen testing?
Yes,
I
like
really
web?
Yeah, web is pretty cool to me, yeah.
Oh, okay. That's right.
I think it's cool.
That's
like,
really
everything's
rare.
on the web, so it's just like, you know, it's a easy thing to get, or an easy thing for my head to like understand.
Okay.
So I really want to pursue that.
So if you are interested in web, do you know like OWASP top 10? So I would start by trying to understand OWASP top 10 completely.
Okay.
Like literally have to, if you can, explain it to your family
Okay.
about OWASP top 10, 2021 or 2017 is up to you. Trying to explain it in the way that non-technical people can understand it. If you're successful on that role, then you are fully understand it. You fully understand it. And then later on, for web application, there are a bunch of different resources that you can try and improve your skills. But Boxwigger is unrealistic in some way. Yes, like because it's so extreme. There are not many applications out there that will have that kind of like sophisticated way path for you to exploit. And when you have the application from your company, you will have like 1 week, 2 weeks. So you don't have enough time to go into the details of every single one of them. And the application usually is pretty big. So to find a really focused vulnerability, like for example SQL injection for like blind SQL injection, if you go into every single parameters and then try to do like blind SQL injection and see every single the difference between responses, it's gonna take you forever. So yeah, Boxwigger is good for you to practice all the beginner and practical. They are good. For expert, if you want to pursue both suite certificate, go for it. For others, I would say Meta CTF. They has a really good resources and it's pretty close to real life applications. And yeah, real world CTF as well, but that one is like really hard. Meta CTF also hosts like previous challenges, so you can come in there and give them a try and write the report about them. And also like doing Ring Zero CTF, if you guys know about them. Ring Zero is it was a pretty cool CTF platform. Right now it is maintained by NotSec. So they're gonna have like a bunch of challenges every single year from NotSec CTF added to Ring Zero. So yeah, those should be good enough for you to start on web application. But yeah, trying to understand OWASP top 10. Right now I don't even understand OWASP top 10 2021 completely because it's so broad and it's so weird in some way, like insecure design. What the hell does that mean? Every single thing is like insecure for web application. So yeah, misconfiguration, I'm like, okay, misconfiguration. So if this is like insecure design, but they also misconfigured it, what will happen? And so there are a bunch of like weird things on like 2021. It's harder to understand than the 2017, but yeah, still trying to understand them.
Awesome, thank you. Pico CTF is a good resource?
Yes. I haven't tried them for so long, but I did them for sometimes. Their web-based CTFs are pretty good. Yeah, I forgot about that one actually. Yeah.
Can I actually just get in real quick? I just want to add to that.
Oh, switch out.
Yes. Just on the topic of Pico, because I try to mention this every time. I forgot to mention it in my story. The way that I got started with CTFs was literally spent probably like 30 or 40 hours just watching YouTube videos of this guy on. He would just go through, do every single Pico CTF challenge, like he'd do them completely blind, and he would explain his whole thought process, and he would solve everything. It was a lot of content. I'm sure he still has a ton of videos, and he's probably updating him. I think it was Ginvale Coldwind or something. I link it in the Discord every like 6 months because I swear by this guy because he was a lead security engineer at Google. He's brilliant. He's very, very, very good at explaining his thought process, which I think is the biggest thing when you're trying to get into CTFs, because a lot of people, if you just go and read like a write-up or a solution and you get the answer, you don't know, like the next time you see it, you have no idea how to get from the beginning to where the actual answer is, right?
Or they reference like 7 tools.
Yeah, they reference all these tools that you might.
What they're doing with the tool.
Exactly, and he's explaining like how you could like build up intuition, which is the most important part. You don't need to have to be able to remember every single thing, but you need to have the ability to figure out what you don't know and how, like, where you can go to define that. He was really, really good. I would highly recommend anybody who's interested in CTFs or is particularly that's new to CTFs, fantastic resource. I'll link it after this too.
Oh yeah, one bonus information, insider information. So I did an interview with a guy on Monday, and he was a newcomer to security industry. So he is doing security for like a year, and he has OSCP. The guy was like, we're sitting in the meeting, 5 professionals intimidate 1 newcomer. Like sitting there, open all the camera and just look at him. And yeah, and it was like a junior role that we are hiring, but the other people asking a lot of questions about real life scenarios, and he couldn't like explain any of it like properly. My role in the interview was just go in there and give him a tabletop exercise. Pretty much anyone knows about tabletop exercise. So do you guys know about D&D?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's basically D&D. And just like I give him the Nmap scan, and then asking him about his thought process, and then going step by step. And if he has like correct answer, I will give him like, oh yeah, okay, you did this, you found something, here's the result. What is your thought process? What are you gonna do next? That's my role in the interview. That's like the easiest one, and I guess like the most friendly one for him, because he was pretty good at CTF and like machines, but not really good at real life scenarios. Like there was a question about if the bank asks you to do a penetration testing, you go into the bank, what are you gonna do next? What is your thought process? What are you gonna attack? That's the question, and you have to like think about different attack vectors and how you can like attack the bank in multiple different ways that won't expose you to the people around. And you have to think about it in a real life scenario. So CTF competitions are good, but still have to think about how you apply them into real world scenario. Like if you do red teaming or like phishing, what tools are you gonna do? are you going to use, how are you going to conduct the attack, and if you do like physical pen test, what is your thought process around that time? Yeah.
Those open-ended like thought process questions that are very vague, right? Like, what are you going to do a pen test if you go into a bank? There's a lot you could possibly say to that, right? There's not really a right answer. It's like, it's just getting a thought process. And I probably have been asked stuff like that in almost every single interview. It's really, really, really common to get asked stuff like that.
I've been asked that in interviews that weren't even related to
Yeah.
security.
Yeah.
I had one with programming. I walked into an interview with, I don't remember the company, it was Vaughn. They were a fire panel group. They've got panels in all the commercial buildings, and they were looking for a very specific programmer. They'd never heard of Niagara College's programming department, so they gave me the interview, not expecting anything from me, and they asked, if we were to walk into this thing, how would you interface with this system? Just open-ended. I had no idea what the system was, so I just took a stab at asking for what kind of protocol, what kind of API options do I have to connect to, and I got a couple eyebrows raised for my things, but in the end they basically said, yeah, you don't come out of this school, so you don't actually know the language you code in, so we're humoring you with an interview. But
Okay.
it's a process even at a greenhouse. I've heard people ask the same thing for manual labor type jobs, just to see how you think
Of
on your
course.
feet.
Yeah.
So, I'm.
I think so.
I have a question. How much do we need to learn for getting certification, and is that good for year 1, year 2 student, and is that important to CoOp?
So I got my co-op, got my full-time job, got my offer from BMO before I get my OSCP.
Oh.
So the only certificate that I got before getting the offer from BMO was the wireless pen test from OFSEC.
OSWP?
Yeah. And I did that one mostly because I had an engagement at Bell asking me to go on site to a company and did like a wireless pen test. Yeah, that was the only reason I took it. But yeah, you don't really need certificates, but it's good to have them, but it's really expensive. So I won't recommend you to pay it for yourself. I pay it for myself. I paid it myself, but I won't recommend it.
Also be a lot of extra work on top of the pile of mountain of schoolwork you've already got going on.
Yeah.
And you have a lot of like free resources out there that you can use instead of like going into a costly certificate.
I just think after do the check me and hack the box, and you don't have any more resources, and I think the certification is a good goal to reach.
If you don't have any more resources to go out there and use your skills to obtain to compete to CTFs. Like I said, if you go to different CTF events like for Trend Micro and for Hackfest and for NotSec, those CTF events usually have higher hiring managers around the competition arena, and they just oh yeah, you did pretty good. Can I give you a job interview or something? Can you can you send me your resume kind of thing? So basically, if you are good with try hack me, hack the box, then use that skills. Go outside and then use it. You have to apply it to the real world instead of just trying doing it yourself. Yeah.
I know that this is a really common question that students have, the whole cert stuff, and I think his answer is the most fair. That a lot of people will say just oh, don't ever do certs, that kind of stuff. But the real if you were in a financial position where you could go and you could pay OFSEC, if you're willing to pay them, it's $2,000 for a course. It's expensive. If you are somehow in that position where you can do that, and you are actually going to be able to, they're very hard, they're really, really hard courses to do, they take a lot of time. If you are in a position where you can pay for the course and you would be able to finish it, it would be really helpful. There's no doubt about that. Not a lot of people are in that position, right? Because we're students. But so the general consensus, particularly for offensive security stuff, is most places don't really care about certs other than stuff from offensive security, like the company OFSEC. A lot of the other ones, they're not really, not particularly respected because offset, all of their exams are very like hands-on.
Yeah.
They're not, there's no multiple choice or anything. It's real scenarios. Don't go and spend like a bunch of money on some like random company or worry about like that kind of stuff. That's kind of my 2 cents on it. Me and a couple of my friends, we did actually do 1 or 2 of like the offset courses while we were in school. Again, it's not something you should feel like you need to do, but the reality, it did help me a lot. It helped me a lot when I was applying for jobs. It got me an interview at virtually every company I applied to. And I don't say this to brag, but that's the reality of the situation. If you are able to do it, it is something to think about. I just want to say this because I know a lot of people will always say, don't think about certs while you're in school, but sometimes it can be okay to do.
Yeah, if you have money.
I was lucky. I got to live at home, so I didn't have to pay rent. That's why I could do it.
Not yet.
Thank you guys.
Thank you for coming.